Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Virginia Dental Association's podcast, The Fulcrum. My name is Karen Wood, and I'm the Director of Operations for VDA Member Perks, which is the VDA Member Benefit Program. Our endorsed vendor partners provide discounts on products and services, as well as an elevated level of support and attention to the VDA members that use them. Today, we are discussing something very near and dear to my heart. Believe it or not, that is dental supplies. Much of my dental career was spent in dental sales, and it started with a rookie position selling dental supplies. I had my customers that I would visit to bring new product info to, handle any questions, returns, and number one, check the clipboard to place an order for them. For those listening that are on the younger side, offices used to keep a clipboard in the lab or sterilization area, and as supplies were needed, dental team members would write them on the clipboard or tape a piece of the box from the supply that they were low on. That evolved into spreadsheets to track the commonly ordered supplies and the preferred vendors for certain items. As distributors expanded the ease of use for online ordering, now an office could go to all their different vendor websites and place the orders for what they need from each one and spend time price checking each one and looking for deals or quantity-based savings. Huge improvement, right? Of course, with one major exception. The number one overhead expense in a dental office is payroll. This is a hidden cost for ordering supplies. And now here we are today with our friends from Method Procurement to make sure all VDA members know the advantages of moving from just ordering supplies to using a modern platform for supply procurement for inventory management. They have created software that price shops for you, checks for back orders, tracks orders, can control spending with budget limits, and so much more, all done in one spot. We are very excited to have had Method join the VDA Member Perks program as an endorsed vendor partner. And today we have Vice President of Sales, Alison Farber.
Nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
I'm excited to talk about some supplies.
So you were the clipboard girl, huh?
I don't want to see a clipboard ever again. So just explain to our listeners what procurement actually is and why it matters.
So procurement, for the uninitiated, is really the entire life cycle of bringing materials into and out of your practice. So traditionally, we're just talking about the materials, the inventory on shelves. But really, when you think about traditional procurement, it is sourcing your goods, so finding your trusted vendors that bring those materials in. It's making sure that you're responsible for all of those cost centers in your organization, both direct costs. So that's how much you're spending on those items, and also indirect costs. So how much it's taking your staff to actually do those types of things and activities. When we're thinking about procurement, the whole goal is to have responsible spending and responsible sourcing and ordering and being as efficient as possible for your practice. So that's kind of in a nutshell, that's what we're talking about for procurement. So inventory is definitely a portion of that, but it really is about making it something that you're cognizant of as a business owner to make sure that you're being responsible with your spending and not just using supplies.
So walk us through a day in the life of an office that uses Method and what your process looks like. We're familiar with our spreadsheets or 5 tabs from different, vendors open to shop and go back and forth and look for deals or shipping. Getting that free shipping is important. And it takes a lot of time. And I know that you have a lot of different options for inventory management that, offices can choose from. So touch on that a little bit as well.
Sure. Yeah. So, I love how you explained it. So practices that don't use a procurement solution, right? We're trying our best to do what's best for the practice, which is one, we absolutely need our supplies. And then 2, we want to be responsible spenders, right? We want to shop around. We all in our daily lives shop around. Either we're clipping coupons before we go to the grocery store, or now we have the apps and things like that. But maybe you go to multiple websites, multiple stores before you make those purchases. A lot of times we see the same behaviors and the same responsibility, fiscal responsibility in a practice. However, for every minute that you're spending, that's minutes of overhead costs that are going into that employee that is doing those activities. And so that's problem number 1. And then problem number 2 is as we're shopping around, we're maintaining spreadsheets or something along those lines. Prices fluctuate often. And there's a lot of variability, especially right now. At the time of recording this, tariffs are still a big thing that's happening. So pricing is all over the place and it's changing literally every hour. So there's still missed opportunity, even though you're going through all of those exercises, you're still probably not doing as well as a computer, a software algorithm could be doing for you. And so that's sort of the magic of what we do when Method is implemented into practices. You bring in all of the vendors that you already shop from, all of those existing relationships. You're not cutting out your account manager that you have a relationship with. You still have your direct line to the fulfillment warehouse. But really what it's doing is just bringing all those accounts in, and then at a press of a button saying, hey, here's the materials I need. Method is actually going through and saying, hey, here's the vendors you should source those things from. Here's the pricing. Here's the stock availability. Here's everything that you need to know. And here's the most optimal way to purchase your supplies and your materials. And so by being able to do that, you're getting best of both worlds. You're still getting all of your goods. You're still doing all of the things that you need to be doing. But at the end of the day, it's bringing in a lever of efficiency that really only software and computers can do in this day and age.
And in terms of back orders or out of stock items, I was an office manager at the time of COVID, where we all hate. But it was insane. I would love to have had a method when that was going on, because you order something and at that point, pricing wasn't even a consideration. It was just getting the product. You wouldn't even know that they were on back order. How does Method notify you, or does it just swing those product lines over to another vendor that has it in stock?
Yeah. And, it's interesting during COVID because we actually came into market right at the beginning of 2020. And so we were there during all of COVID, and that actually it was terrible timing, but also perfect timing for us because we saw the marketplace at its absolute worst, right? And so we were really able to build and iterate from there. One of the very first things that we did was that we have a connection that we have proprietary in our software called MConnect. And what that does is that it actually goes through that account within the individual distribution partners. So if you always I'll pick on Henry Schein. You always go to Henry Schein's website. If you log in with your account, it's going to pull over that account specific information. So that is, if you have negotiated pricing, it'll pull that through. But also, most of these distribution centers have your accounts tied to local warehouses. And so it pulls that information through as well. So then it's going to pull over that stock status directly from websites into the platform to say, hey, this is available in that local warehouse, or this is on back order, or this has limited availability and it's only able to be, given to these certain states. So it's that level of complexity that really a good software should be able to work with and work for. Otherwise, to your point, it's just a shot in the dark. If you have like a list and you say, okay, these are the things I need, who knows when you're going to get those materials? So having something that's up to snuff and is being able to think about those things for you is really important.
So let's say that I am low on Prepy Base. Does everyone have a login to Method to be able to add? And then how does the ordering work?
Yeah, so really good question. We leave a lot of flexibility up to the practice because every practice orders a little bit differently. So some places it's one person's responsibility, other places it's everybody for themselves. And sometimes there's a hybrid where we might still do, tagging and putting things into a box, putting the empty case into a box and having somebody sit down with the box and make sure that they're filling out everything. So we really want to be flexible and work with the practices where they're at. My favorite approach to this is that we actually this year reintroduced an old favorite from the 90s, and that's inventory scanning. So it's an option that we have. Basically, we indexed every single unique item within Method with a QR code, and that works across different vendors. And so as people are going through and noticing that they have items that they need to resupply, they just need to scan the item or scan the QR code, and then that puts it automatically into the shopping cart so that when it comes time to check out, everything is sitting there waiting for them to check out. And so that makes it really easy to have multiple people go through purchasing, have one person be able to just go through the list. However, we're adapting to the practice. We don't really have to change how you do it. We just need somebody to sit at the computer and run the checkout process. So it's really nice to be able to fit things in so you don't have to change your process that much. Because that's one thing we don't want to do is change the process that the staff are already trained on and comfortable with.
Right. So now is that a handheld scanner that you provide, or is this an app through the phone?
We provide handheld scanners. You can also use a iPad or something like that with a camera on it. So both are low cost. We don't sell it to try to make money. We sell it just to make sure that it's something that is going to work and it's a system that's reliable for the practices. I know a lot of practices, they don't like people using their personal devices when they're on the floor. So most people prefer to use the scanners.
And if you are accustomed to that old clipboard method, or you had sheets of things, can the QR codes be listed out?
Yeah, absolutely. When we onboard people, and I should mention that, software, I live and breathe it every day. It's very easy for me. I know a lot of people, especially at practices, they are a little intimidated when you have a new software or something. So we train everybody. We actually sit with them and onboard and help them navigate the shopping experience, help them create those easy to access lists of the thing that they buy the most. And then what we do is that we'll use those lists that we import for them. And then we'll use that to generate the new sheet on the clipboard. So then we can have them print it off or, make tags or whatever. And then you're good to go, because then you just have a brand new sheet that has the Method QR code. So you just switch that on the clipboard and you're off to the races.
Nice. And what about budget spending? I know that I was reading on your website that you can set limits for certain things. Does someone you can fill up the cart as much as you want, but at the end of the day, someone's going to be press and send on that order, and they have administrative rights to edit the cart. Is that correct?
Yeah, they do. And, I want to touch on budgets a little bit, because there's a couple of things that I want to, talk about with spend. I think I talk to a lot of practices that when we're talking about supplies, they don't even know, how much should I be spending on supplies, or can I really reach that number? So our rule of thumb is that if you're above 6%, and really if you're above 5%, you're missing the boat on where you should be for hitting your supply budget. So when I say 5%, I mean 5% of your collections. So that's a really nice rule of thumb, as where should you be? If you're above 5%, you really should be thinking about strategies. Now, e-procurement is one of the best things that you can do. If you're still not quite sure what you need to do, if you're an independent practice, that's why we're here. You guys have a lot of relationships to drive that spend down. There's also buying groups. There's talking to your vendors. There's a lot of ways to reduce your costs. We're very tapped into that. I'm happy to talk people through what those different strategies are to bring those spending costs down within a reasonable budget. Once we reach that 5%, back to your question, we have budgets reinforced within our software. So this comes with both versions of our software: Essentials, which is good for a single location practice, and Enterprise, which are more for group practices. But you can run those budgets for the week, the month, the quarter, the year, all the above. And what's unique about Method is that before you hit buy on the shopping cart, it's going to tell you how much that amount is going to stack up to your existing and remaining budget for that set period. So there's no hiding from that budget. There's no oops or, oh no, I went over again. When you're actually looking at all of your receipts at the end of the month, you're actually able to kind of look at that and really do a gut check of, do I really need all of these supplies right now? Right? Am I staying in budget? Am I going to go over? Okay, if I'm going to go over, why am I going to go over? Is it a one-off or is it a trend? So it really helps you kind of get into that mindset, so that it brings your supplies and your purchasing into more of a strategic thought process, as opposed to something that's just a little bit reactionary, or something that's just kind of a means to an end.
Well, on that with the tracking, let's talk about reports. Like, what kind of reports is an office going to be pulling on a monthly, quarterly basis that you guys provide?
Yeah, so there's a lot. We have within our Essentials version, which again is more for the solo practitioner, we come with paired end reports, things like how many orders you're placing, how much you're spending by supplier, which is a big one, especially if you're open to negotiation, or maybe you're thinking about changing who your suppliers are. And then we also have an average savings report, which is the blended average across all of your available suppliers and what you paid. So then that really is telling you whether or not Method has been a smart investment for your practice. So we try to be very upfront with everything that you might need in order to look at your business and your expenditures. Beyond that, for our group practices, we have an entire Power BI reporting suite. And that's really for those in-depth reports. And what we're looking at there is whether or not you're trying to establish a formulary, what that compliance is going to be, where budgets are for all of your locations, how much house goods you might be purchasing. So if you're trying to make an effort to switch from manufactured goods over to private label, something that we've coined called gap orders. So those are orders that are less than $250. Usually at that threshold, we see shipping being incurred accidentally. A lot of practices make the mistake of treating supply ordering like Amazon Prime. So they're not realizing that there's a little bit of shipping charges that get put on some of those order minimums. So we really try to make a whole bunch of reports available to those practices baked in. But then in addition to that, we have over 250 data points within the software that the practice can actually manipulate and use to, usually it's used to accompany other data reportings that they're looking at. So we have pretty much the whole gambit of whatever you're needing, wherever you are, from pre-baked, like, hey, these are the basic things that you should be looking at, all the way to here's all of the data that you could possibly imagine. So you can manipulate that and use it however you're looking at it.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of vendors that you have relationships with. So you're probably going to be introducing some, new options for supplies. And I remember during the shutdown when we were scrambling, we were opening accounts with all these different vendors. How does that work with Method? Are they still having to go outside of Method to open up the account? Or how does that get handled? Just on a logistical basis.
Yeah, sure. That's a really good question. And this is a little bit different between Method and other solutions that are out there. So we as a procurement company have relationships with just about 100 different suppliers in the United States. As part of that, we make sure that all of these suppliers are authorized by manufacturers and they don't sell gray products. And that's really important for us because we want to make sure that there's a very clear chain of custody. For the uninitiated, chain of custody means that all of those materials that you get delivered to your practice, we know and your vendors know who shipped them, where they've been stored, have they been stored properly, are they being managed in good ways, basically, so that you're not carrying any sort of inherent risk. God forbid there's a safety recall or something like that, and you're affected, which items are part of that recall and you can do something about that. That's why it matters to us that we have qualified vendors that we work with. Now, outside of that, 100 different vendors, that's a lot. When we onboard new customers, we recommend that you actually bring your relationships with you and shop with those. So when you go through the shopping experience, it's only with those vendors that you have accounts with. Now, that being said, because we have that connectivity with all of those other vendors, there are some vendors that we have in our system that you have visibility into what's available on their website so that you can kind of do a gut check within the marketplace and then sort of choose and reach out to those vendors and then bring them into Method. So that way it's kind of giving you a guided experience of, hey, here's the vendors that we work with, but then it's up to you to open up accounts, make sure the relationship is there, make sure your billing is in order, make sure the fulfillment works for you, all of that fun stuff. Because at the end of the day, a procurement system really should be your facilitator, but we are not the ones that are handling the goods, paying for the goods or anything along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm assuming returns will be handled the same way.
Yeah, we kick off the returns, but then they go over there because how you handle returns in the practice it's going to be different for each item, really. Is it damaged? Do you need a replacement? Is it something that maybe you can use, but you want a partial credit for? So that's definitely part of things that we don't handle, but we help facilitate. So
Alison, let's talk about the impact this has on a practice. Obviously, we've talked about cost savings, but how else does this affect, especially the office manager, whoever's placing those or supplies and tracking that spend?
Yeah. I love the why should we care question, because when when you're in a practice, when you own a practice or you're helping run a practice, a lot of times there's so many things that are a priority, right? Supplies is not one of them, nor should it be. If it is, you have a really big problem. And I like to think about this in two different ways. One is this is something that you should not have to DIY and you shouldn't have to be bothered with. This is one of those places where you can pop in a software and the problem basically takes care of itself. Isn't it nice that you don't have to manage spreadsheets? You don't have to worry about who's ordering. If you're the doctor that's ordering, please stop. You're the most important person at your practice, and you are also the person that is bringing in the most revenue. This is something that should be given to somebody else, and you should trust them to be able to do it. With a software, you're creating those guardrails so that it is something that you can help control and get oversight over in a very minimal amount of time. And this is something that you don't have to think about anymore. Set it and forget it. The other reason why I personally am a procurement nerd, I've been in procurement for many years now. This is actually my second company that I've worked with that's in procurement, is the direct impact to revenue. So a lot of the things that the practice is focused on, and rightfully so, right? We're talking about marketing to bring more patients in the door. What type of cases are we doing? Are we getting as much collections out of these as possible, right? There's so much revenue cycle management that we need to do in order to keep the doors open and keep that money coming in. Saving a couple $100 or a couple $1,000 really isn't worth it in the scheme of things unless it's easy. But when you're looking at cost savings, every dollar that you save is actually a dollar. Whereas if you're looking at earning more money, every dollar that you earn, you're actually only bottom lining maybe 20, 25 cents of that dollar. You take all the operational overhead out of it. That's one why I love this and why I'm a nerd about it. The second reason why I like this is that if you're thinking about making changes to your practice, if you're looking at doing some sort of fundraising, or you're thinking about selling, or you want to bring in a partner or any of those things, a lot of times you need to get that bottom line up very quickly. This is one of those things that you can institute and you immediately start seeing the impact on your bottom line as soon as you do. Because as soon as you turn it on, those are real dollar cost savings that go back into your bottom line. And as soon as you turn that on, that's going to compound, because every month that you do it, you're seeing that return. And you're also, because of that shopping around ability, you're also protecting yourself from being charged too much. So now all of a sudden you're not only saving money, but you're avoiding future costs. The more you do that, the more it compounds on itself. And that's more found money that you can put back into your practices, back into your bottom line, back into those things that matter. So it really becomes cyclical for your business. So at the end of the day, this is something that you don't have to care about. You put it in, it works for you. It starts delivering immediately. It's giving you money so that you can put it back into the things that you actually do care about and actually do matter for you. And I think that's actually kind of magical. It's nerdy, sure, but it is nice.
I opened this up with saying I was excited to talk about dental supplies. So there you go. But I think it's an interesting point that you bring up that most offices or team members wouldn't think about, because that's not how they run their household on a cost savings basis. And then you're spending all this time trying to save $1 on, or $2 or $5 even on an item. The amount of time the employee is spending doing that is bringing that savings down. So that's a different way to look at it, and it's a much more savvy way to look at it.
Yeah, as a consumer, I hate coupon clipping because it's taking me 2 minutes to save 25 cents. Right. And so if we think about that from a practice level, not only that, but also I'm the most valuable person in my household. I shouldn't be clipping the coupons.
Right.
I should be handing, income wise, maybe it's something that one of my kids should be doing, and then that way they can actually do it. So, that's probably a terribly forced analogy, and I'm sorry out there to anybody who might be offended, but that's one of those things that at a practice, let's go ahead and turn this over and trust our staff to get the things done. And when we're talking about supplies and we're talking about, doctors, practitioners with their supplies, they like what they like. They have a relationship. They have a experience with some of these materials. And sometimes that's hard to let go of. So having a system in place that is reinforced, that helps you let go of that a little bit more too, right? They're not going to buy the wrong bonding agent. If it's in the system and it's saying, hey, this is the one that you need to buy, good. We can restrict them so that they can't buy anything else. Great. If there's a certain material, a certain kind of burr that you prefer, a certain manufacturer, great. Put that in there and then lock it down and then hand it off. Put the budgets in place so that people aren't spending too much. there's definitely ways that you can help control this so that you don't have to manage it, which I think is really, really cool. Because most practitioners I talk to, buying supplies is something that they do at the end of the day when they should be home relaxing. Right. And instead they're sitting there and shopping on some websites.
Right. And then that 5 to 6% of your overhead based on collections, that hasn't changed. That really hasn't changed over my lifetime of working in sales.
But it's a rule of thumb. I would say most practices that are on Method are sub 5%, just because of that level of efficiency. It's not uncommon for us to see from brand new practices that are coming, from no system or some failed attempts to save usually about $1,000, $1,200 a month, which is not bad for a software that, for our basic package is less than $70. That's a heck of an ROI. And then you're seeing that consistently month over month. And then if you're using the data and leveraging it the right way, then you find other areas to save and other opportunities to make that savings even more impactful for your business.
Yeah, and having that budget, especially when you start to think about, stocking up on things. So now 1 month you're way off the charts, but that was a great deal on patient napkins that never expire. But then it's hard to correlate that with the production that you did. 1 month you've got, fortunately you got 10 implants and, a bunch of other large procedures. And then the next month you're off on vacation for 2 weeks or whatever. And then you've had there's no consistency to match up on what you produce and what you're spending. So, and that used to be a thought process, just to bulk up and buy once a month. And that way you're only unloading once a month, but then you can't really track things. And like the office I worked at, we were swimming in supply in that closet for the first 2 weeks of the month.
Yes, absolutely. Best practices from what we've seen from practices is purchasing twice a month. That seems to be the sweet spot. Usually first, whatever that big bulk order that's still there, right? But then we wait 2 weeks, wait 3 weeks until you notice that you forgot something, right? Don't immediately go, oh my gosh, this. It takes time to get there. But then when we have that twice a month cadence, then you can start to take advantage of, those manufacturer BOGOs or what have you. You can do your bulk orders, but then also with those budgets, run a monthly budget and then run a quarterly budget. Because that way, if you have a vacation or a down month or something like that, things can stabilize. If you want to order a whole bunch of things that don't expire, then you're going to run through them. Cool. You can still do that. But also don't do that with goods that expire. I see people do that. It's like, oh, this is a really good idea. We're totally going to use all of this. And then they have expiration on shelves. And then all of a sudden it's all waste, right?
Right.
So there's definitely ways that you should think about what you're ordering, why you're ordering, and whether or not it makes sense. But if it has an expiration date on the box, please don't bulk buy it.
I can see so many advantages to using this technology that you guys have. And I'm sure you're going to be hearing from our members. How does an office get started with Method?
It's as easy as going to our website, methodusa.com, and then hitting sign up, contact us. What that does is that goes to my team. Somebody will reach out immediately. If you don't schedule a time to meet with us, we will call you. But it also gives you the opportunity to get on our schedule so that we're working within what your team needs. So you get on our schedule, you review the software, you say yay or nay. And then from there, it takes us about a day to get your site ready. And so we'll schedule a training call. We'll take whoever's going to be on the team that needs to be trained on the software. They'll go with our customer success team. It takes about 30 minutes, maybe 45 for a practice. Gets trained up, and then we actually will schedule for when you place your first order so that you have somebody sitting by your side to make sure that you're really ready to go and that you're placing the order and you're super comfortable. So, it's a 3-step process from start to finish. It's not a lot of time, but we really want to make sure that all of the practices that work with us are feeling comfortable, that they're set up, that we're answering all their questions, that they're super supported. And then once you go live, if you forget how to order, because we're only talking about using a software every 2 weeks or a month, there's a in-app help that goes straight to a guy named Ben on my team. He sits behind me, and he's actually there to answer all the live chat questions. And we even have the ability to remote into the software to show you exactly where to click. So we try to make it really, really easy to set up and to run and to do all of the things.
Great. Alison, thank you for your time and expertise today. We will have contact information for Method Procurement in the show notes. Please use the link to learn more and take advantage of the special offer they have created for VDA members. VDA members receive free implementation, but right now, if you mention that you listen to this podcast or give the code VDA Member 25, you'll receive a free scanner and 50 tags with a value of $200. Please like, subscribe, rate, and share this podcast. Let us know if you have any suggestions for future topics, as our goal is to bring relevant and helpful content to VDA members and their teams. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to having you return for the next episode of The Fulcrum.